Thanks everybody for showing up. My name is Kyle Kleva. I am the project coordinator for Teaching with Primary Sources Western Region. And this is the Primary Sources and Teaching Online webinar series brought to you by the Western Region at MSU Denver in partnership with the TPS Teachers Network. I will be your host for tonight, and then Keith Patterson and Crystal Payne will be helping in the chat. Please reach out to them if you have any questions or comments. You can also use the raised hand tool to let us know you have something to share. For those of you who would like the professional development certificate for your participation, we will provide a link at the end to fill out a brief reflection and where to send the certificate. Our two-part program tonight, entitled Creating Purposeful Learning Environments, will be presented by Dr. Raleigh Schendel, who's the Professor of Literacy in the School of Education at MSU Denver. The presentation will be in two parts. The first session, Raleigh will share ideas for defining, taking inventory, and reimagining space. And in the second session, he will share ideas for accessing, enhancing, and creating space. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Raleigh.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be here with everyone. I hope you're having a delightful day. I certainly am, and I'm looking forward to spending some quality time learning about teaching with you. Please don't hesitate to stop the presentation at any point in time and verbalize a question or jot down a question in the chat box. So as Kyle had stated, we're going to focus on creating purposeful learning environments. In this part one, we will actually begin by defining purposeful learning environments. So what does that mean? We were talking the other day as we were thinking about ideas for creating this webinar and what might be special, what might be memorable, and what might move you or stick with you, so to speak. And Kyle and I thought, you know, a beautiful word that kind of encapsulates this is rebooting our thinking, you know, stepping outside of the normal nature of our lives and thinking outside the box, so to speak, and enhancing our boundaries and taking a critical and distant look at learning environments. So with that, we're going to use this inquiry question to guide our understanding today. How might I reimagine learning environment to promote thinking? So with this definition, I think it'll serve as a powerful foundation for all of us as we progress. So you need a piece of blank paper handy for the next slide, and then I'm going to walk you through a fourfold process to actually come up with a definition on our own terms that'll help us and enhance our understanding. So please draw this figure on your sheet. So this tiny box in the middle, and then four boxes around that, just tied in. And if you don't know about the fourfold is a fantastic strategy for helping learners come up with and understand a definition of academic vocabulary, of a concept that's intangible, of a term that's pretty deep and or extended to a wide variety of areas of life. For example, I've used a fourfold to help my learners understand friendship. So with third grade girls, specifically in my past, having challenges with one another, you know, odd girl out. One girl's the least favorite each week in this case. And then we sat down together and we used the fourfold to actually come up with a logical and meaningful definition of the term friendship. So that's an example. One other quick example is I've used this in a number of ways and a number of times to define community at the beginning of the school year with learners of all ages. So here's the actual vision or version of the fourfold concept development strategy. You don't need to write in all these bits and pieces, but you'll need to just remember them and view the screen as necessary to guide your thinking. So the first step in the instructions is to list terms. So the upper left-hand quadrant there, go ahead and list terms, attributes, characteristics anything that you can think of that have to do with learning environment. I'll get you started maybe with a few, but right now you're already writing on your piece of paper. I might put classroom, basically, desk or table, and then just going from there. So spend about 1 minute writing as many ideas as you can come up with. So I'm going to start talking to you again, but keep writing, don't stop. If you have more ideas to list in the list box, then keep that rolling. The next step of our process is to take 3 of those items, 3 of the things listed in the list box, and actually pull them over into the rank section. In this section, you rank order those hierarchically from most important to least important. So take the top 3 from the list and put them in rank. Spend about a minute to do so.
So this list, just as an example, Raleigh, what I had written down was school, desks, friends, teachers.
Yeah, excellent. Your list may go on and on and on, like playground, lunchroom, homework station, so on and so forth. Yeah, excellent, Kyle. Thank you. All right, we're going to jump to the next step of this process, and that is where we actually take our thinking to a deeper level and we use it to form a comparison. So we're going to jump to this comparison box, and you actually here will create an analogy. It's also possible to jot down several metaphors if you prefer that. So learning environment is like blank because both have these shared characteristics. So go ahead and spend about a minute or so trying to come up with an analogy that is pertinent to your thinking.
And one thing, Raleigh, when we've done this before, people generally have trouble with analogies and coming up with metaphors. And I think it's important to stress that this doesn't have to be a perfect analogy. It can just be a really simple learning environment is like cake because there's multiple layers to it, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can go in any direction. There's no right answer to this. In essence, the process is one of inquiry. So the point is just to be thinking, not to be thinking accurately.
Raleigh, there's some great examples in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that. It's phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, you're thinking about this beautifully and in ways that make sense to you. Forging deeper understanding and making connections to practical and kind of, I guess, tangible items and things. This is exactly what many of our learners need, not all, but it sure can provide a powerful set of scaffolding for them to create a comparison or two, such as these. And then in the long run, they start to create their own. The beauty of this too is in looking at this chat box, I get to start to understand each of you as learners and how you think, what you relate to, and what your outside life is like, which ultimately will help me. So the next step we jump to is the illustrate. So go ahead and move over to the illustrate box. And one way to look at the illustrate, I'm going to talk for a moment while you're thinking about this, and you can go ahead and just be drawing as I speak. Think about this in terms of a pivotal icon. What icons in our environment, in our community or cultures, kind of encapsulate things, notions, beliefs, the way our system works, so on and so forth. It can be a symbol, just like our nation has some powerful and purposeful symbols. It can certainly be a picture of your comparison. So you can just take your comparison to the next level and actually create an image for that. You're certainly welcome to jot down an idea or two in the chat box and or unmute yourself and share while we kind of finish with a moment of illustration. So this is very, very important. We've spent a kind of an abundance of time regarding our 1-hour webinar on this defining portion of the learning experience, but the definition that we come up with and or our shared understanding of a definition certainly serves as a powerful foundation for us to continue our thinking. Think back to your classroom, your learning spaces, where your students, they lack the understanding that's necessary to dig deeper, to understand things more fully, simply because they may not understand a particular word that we're using or a phrase that's used abundantly to showcase the greater concept. So the real key to this is unpacking this definition. And what I would typically do in a classroom regarding the fourfold and a concept that needs to be studied is do this one day and focus a whole lesson on it, and then wait a while and return to it and then use it to inspire further understanding. So we're going to go ahead and jump to the next slide, and that's taking inventory. So now that we have a foundational definition or two of what learning spaces are, learning environments, we're going to take inventory of what we've actually done, with respect to our own teaching and learning. So what spaces do you typically use when teaching? So we're going to use a strategy called List Mania. And with this one, you can flip your paper over or pull another sheet over, use the bottom half, and just write as many examples of teaching spaces that you've focused on or that you've attended to in your own teaching as possible. So spend about a minute doing so. Now this goes back to and overlaps possibly with a lot of the list that we created for the last one. Go ahead and craft a list. So as you continue to craft, shoot something over to the chat if you think it's unique, if it hasn't been listed, if you want to showcase it. We're going to go ahead and move to the next step, and that's to actually go through our list and star a few spaces that we might want to consider using differently to support learners. So what's a space that you've used, that you listed, that you want to delve into more deeply and maybe redefine it or reimagine it for the purposes of our learning today? Hopefully everyone has a start item or two. This could merely be a matter of you starring your classroom, starring Google Slides. And if you were a part of or have been a part of the previous webinars, you've seen some interesting and powerful ways to enhance Google slideshows and other technological spaces like from Michelle. We're going to move forward and jump to the next part of the process, and that's actually reimagining our spaces. So what do you think we could do to reimagine our spaces? So I'm going to lead you through a set of activities. So I want you to just follow along, and I'm going to talk as you go and you do these steps. So choose one of your starred spaces, the spaces that you listed previously. I want you to actually close your eyes, so you don't need to be typing in the chat session or staring at the screen at these slides. Close your eyes. Visualize that space. So the space that you identified with your star, you can actually see it. You can see it vividly. I mean, you've been an integral part of that space. What's your perch? In other words, where are you at? What's your stance or your positioning? If you're in the classroom, if you're imagining your classroom, are you in the middle of your classroom? Are you standing at the door just as you walk in? What is your perch? I want you to actually move in your mind with your eyes closed physically to another place in that area and look around, take a different view of the space. So I can imagine moving from the center of my classroom, for example, third grade classroom, over to the door, to the exit, to the outside, and turning around and viewing my classroom, our classroom, from that perspective. So what do you see now? What's different? What do you notice? What comes into view? What comes into focus? I want you to actually zoom in on a specific area of that space. So it may be across the room at the art easel. It could be at a table where projects are completed. Think about what's there. Imagine what you see. You're listing things in your mind. You're identifying specific things. You're essentially using see, think, wonder, and you're seeing the details, thinking about how they're used, what they're for. Then this final step for this activity, look at what's missing in that specific space? What could be added? What have you thought about adding to it but haven't? You know, you're dismissed from your teaching and learning space, maybe your classroom, your library, for a couple months now. Have you thought about the things that you were wanting to add? What could you add? What might you add? You can go ahead and open your eyes. I'll use one of those. You can do some phenomenal things. Not only that, researching what a 3D printer can be used for. We're going to go ahead and continue with reimagining space, but this part of the learning experience is focused on essentially the most important part of our jobs. You think about all that's being done, all the decisions that are being made right now for us and of us with regard to teaching and learning, and the changes that have been made, moving to remote experiences. And it ultimately boils down to the purposes of a space. So what are the purposes of any particular space? In your head, you can go back to the specific space that you were just imagining and think about that particular space that you were focusing your gaze on, and what's the purpose? What are the purposes of that space? As we consider reimagining space and thinking about all the purposes, I'm going to lead you through a set of images to help you understand and expand your thinking. These aren't meant to limit, they're just meant to be springboards. So if you come up with other ideas, you can certainly shout those out and paste those in the chat box. But later we'll have a great chance to share teaching and learning ideas regarding environment in a Google Doc. So what idea comes to mind here with this image? What reimagination of space do you consider? I don't know how much you've played with noise canceling headphones and or how much you've practiced offering them to learners, but they can be life-changing for helping us make greater sense of learning spaces for kids. What else might be possible with these? In a moment, we'll talk a little bit about viewing strategies. Might these be used while experiencing a video or a performance and limiting the input to visual? Removal of distractions, absolutely. I mean, certainly we want to teach our students how to remove distractions. We can certainly give them the upper hand by scaffolding them in doing so with noise canceling headphones. Beautiful. How about this slide to inspire some thinking? So what reimagination of space comes to mind as you view this slide? You can imagine right now you're teaching remotely, possibly to a whole class of students or classes of students in the middle school teacher, high school students scenario or life. How can we promote student growth and learning through pitch blackness?
It's just a black screen.
Exactly. It's darkness. Can we teach our students in an environment, in a space that's actually void of light? So can we get them to listen to poetry with eye shades on? The point isn't to, guide you down a path that gives you ideas for using darkness or noise canceling headphones. It's to help you even further kind of project yourself into other ideas. What about this space? You crack me up. Yeah. You know it's under there. How often have we encouraged our students to just crawl under the desk and create a sanctuary for learning? You know, it's independent reading time because we're circulating around doing in one-to-one independent conferencing with readers. So while they're waiting to meet with us, they're actually reading their text on their own. And can they create this space hidden under their desks to actually project themselves into the text? Another perspective. Right now, we can be asking our students to go outside and try to figure out how they think about particular concepts or ideas, and do so by helping them change their view of the world, or as in this case. Yeah, Judy, I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Pennack's Rights of the Reader. Phenomenal text. He gives 10 rights of the reader, and one is the right to read anywhere. Yeah, right on, Cindy. We're going to move into an intermission right now. I'm hopeful, based on your chat and your thinking, that you have a ton of ideas generating right now, and maybe they're just tweaks in how you use your space differently, how you teach remotely, capitalizing on space, because sometimes it's not based on going more elaborate with another tech tool, but using the tool that we actually have used all along in a unique or creative way. So you have a chance for a 5-minute field trip. And what I want you to do is just walk around your current environment to look for inspiration for reimagining space. So actually get up out of your chair or wherever you're at right now, if you're in a safe place to actually conduct a field trip. And it looks like it's 4:32 right now. Please return to this show at 4:37. So go ahead and go on a field trip to help yourself reimagine. All right, as you transition back to the webinar, some interesting views or I guess events possibly, and or items to visualize around your home or the other space that you're kind of laying low in. And you'll get a chance to share some of those in just a moment. Kyle, you ready to transition?
Sure, yeah. Just as a reminder, if you want to show that slide. Just as a reminder, here is the link to receive your PD certificate. If you would like it, we do these breaks so that we can cut them for the videos for viewing afterwards on the recording. So the professional development certificate can be filled out at bit.ly/PS teaching online. And there's just a quick reflection to do or to get the PD certificate. Those will be mailed out a few days after you fill it out.